Hello, welcome to another edition of A Lot of Help with James Lott Jr. I am James Lott Jr., a certified life coach, professional organizer, former nurse. My website is alotofhelp.com. You can go there for any kind of things you might need. My guest is actually a friend of mine, and he wrote this book that is completely serious in tone, speaking out about men's and I'll say boys and men's sexual abuse, which a lot of folks aren't really talking about. Some people are talking about it now. They're starting to say a few things here and there. But his book, Toy Cars, One Man's Journey from Trauma to Triumph, literally goes into, talks about it. Like, this is not, we're not glazing over anything. We're not talking about it. And I want to say now, before I introduce him, we're going to talk about sexual situations. We're going to talk about life. We're going to talk about possibly unaliving stuff. We're talking about drugs, sex, rock and roll. All that stuff's going to be in there. So this might be triggering for some people, may not be for all ages. So you may want to stop now, come back and watch it when you can, when you're maybe by yourself, or put headphones in or whatever. Or, but I say you should watch it. I think every man, woman should watch this and hear our conversation. And if you're listening to us on audio podcast, same thing. But I want to make sure I give that warning now. And now introduce the guest and author of the book and the guy who lived it, Nathan Spiteri. Hi, Nathan.
Hello. It's a pleasure to be here. I know we've been talking about this for a while, so I'm excited to do this.
Yeah, so folks, a little backstory. I met Nathan like over 5-6 years ago through a friend. Our girl, Lauren B. Martin, who we love, said, you should meet this guy. He's a friend. He's going to be in California. Meet him in LA. Meet him. And I'm always like, I like to meet everybody. Why not? And we hit it off at the very beginning. And so I remember the genesis of him with this book. He had there was no physical book yet. It was a manuscript. He was talking about what he wanted to do with it. So congratulations, first of all, for producing the book, getting the book out.
Thank you. Yeah. It was 2018 and I had a big article come out about me in Australia. And it was in the Sunday Times. So it was in the biggest paper. It's in the Sydney Morning Herald, Sunday Times, the middle spread. So there's a full spread of a photo of me on one side. Then on the other side was a full article. And it received, I think, almost over 1 million hits over the time. And about 6 months after that article coming out, I had a publisher in Australia, a publishing house out of Melbourne, reach out to me and say, Nathan, can you write your memoir? We would love for you to write your memoir. And I ummed and ahed about it. And I thought, oh, shit, I never wanted to write my story. I never wanted to write a memoir. But then I thought, you know what, this could really help a lot of people. I've done a lot of healing and I know where I'm at with my life and all of that. And I'm at peace with my past. So I thought, okay, let's do this. And we wrote it. And I think it came out in 2022. Yeah. So it's been 2 years.
I want to go back, right? You're walking right into what I want to talk about first, because putting out a book, folks, you won't want to put it down. Like, you won't want to put it down. It's like, see, I'm gonna post it online so you can see it for sure. This book is like him talking to you. It's literally like him telling your story. Nothing's left out. It's like it's all there on the page. I read this in like a day and a half. Like I couldn't put it down. But folks, I want to ask Nathan, first seeing that spread, I mean, in one of the biggest newspapers in your homeland, like I said, middle. We have certain magazines that kind of like that too. Like certain, like if you're in Time Magazine or this or LA Times or New York, like there's certain things. We have our certain publications too. When you saw it, what were some of you? Can you remember some of your thoughts?
It was interesting because I actually wasn't in the country when it came out. So it's a funny story. Not a funny story. So my sister's husband died of cancer. I was here. I went home for the funeral. So I stayed home for about 2-3 weeks. I stayed home and just spent some time with the family. And this was at the time, 2018, when the Prime Minister of Australia, just like the President, but the Prime Minister of Australia, did a huge public apology, because it was at the time when the Catholic Church, the Boy Scouts, when all of that was starting to come out. So the Prime Minister did a public apology for all the institutional rape that happened in Australia. A good friend of mine works for the newspaper. She knew of my story and she said, Nathan, can we, in conjunction with the Prime Minister doing this apology, can we tell your story? And I'm like, oh fuck, this is going to make it real. This is, Jesus, I don't know. But I thought, you know what, sure, let's do this because it can, really create some change. And I went and told mum and dad. I said, I'm going to do this story. And mum said, can it be an anonymous article? Do you need to put your name and photo?
Yes.
And I went back and I spoke to my friend, and my friend's name is Bree, who works for the paper. I went and spoke to Bree, and she said, Nathan, we need to put your name and photo because otherwise it's just a made up story. But if we put your face and if we put your name, it adds strength to it.
It
And the
does.
fact that you're this guy who grew up in this small little town who is now living in New York and an actor and being successful and doing all that stuff, it adds so much more weight to the story as well. So it was Halloween weekend 2018. So we don't really celebrate Halloween in Australia. So it was
Oh,
around October 30th, 31st, whenever it was. And I was in New York. I was going to a Halloween party, and I knew the article was coming out the next morning on the Sunday. I went to the party on the Saturday, and Australia is 16 hours ahead. So it's a fair way ahead in time. So by about 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the afternoon, I started receiving texts and emails and messages. I'm like, oh, fuck, 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 fuck. So I just turned my phone off.
okay.
I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to know about it. I'm like, oh my God, I don't get anxiety. I don't get stressed, but this really got to me. I didn't have
Yes.
my phone on until about 9 a.m. the next day. I went out and I went to my friend's Halloween party, turned it on at 9 a.m. the next day, and I had over 300 messages from friends, from family, from strangers on Instagram, on Facebook, on just
Oh,
on
yeah.
text.
I know how it is.
And these people were like, holy, shit, we had no idea you went through this. We had no idea. A lot of people said to me, which I don't know if it's a compliment or not. A lot of people said, we knew there was something off with you, but now this explains everything. I'm like, oh, Jesus,
I
really?
thank you. Why, thank you for that. Yes. Okay.
And then I just had so many strangers say, you've just saved my life. You've given me the power now to tell my story. You've given me the power now to confront my abuser, to tell my parents, to whatever the situation was. From not just in Australia, 95% was Australia, but there were people from overseas already reaching out. So it was just an amazing it was an amazing time, and it really hit me and it hit my family, and my parents were really worried because small town, not many people knew, but now the whole world knows about it. And luckily my parents and my brother and sister got nothing but love, and wow, Nathan's amazing because of what he's doing and the courage and all that stuff. So, and then that just triggered everything. That started this whole advocacy side of me of where I want to be, and now me being a speaker and a global speaker, and we'll probably get into that later, but that started that whole side of it. And then, like I said, 6 months after that, I got a Instagram message from the publisher of a publishing house, and she said, Nathan, we would love for you to write your memoir. And I'm like, like I said, we spoke about it for about 3 months, and then I signed the contract, and I just sat on it for about 2 months thinking, I don't know how to do this. How the fuck am I going to write my memoir? How do I do it? How do I do it? And it was Thanksgiving time. I was in New York. My best friends had a house in Sag Harbor in New York. And, in the wintertime, it's dead. It's quiet. There's nothing going on in town. So I asked them, I said, can I go sit in your house for a month and just write? Because I had to get out of New York. There was too many distractions. There was work. There was all that nonsense. So I went and sat at their house in New York, and that's when it just started. And from there, I went back to Australia for a few months and spoke to my family, spoke to friends, did some research and all that stuff. And that was when Australia had the really bad bushfires, 2020,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I then sat at home in Australia and just was writing because we couldn't really go out because the bushfires were very close to us. And then got back to New York. A week after I got back, COVID happened. So then I just sat at home, which is a bit of a blessing in disguise. I just sat at home and wrote, and I was writing about 3,000 words a day. I was just in it. And it took 5 months to write this book. It was 128,000 words. But then through the edits and rewrites and all that, not really rewrites, but just edits and cleanups, we got it down to about 112,000.
I've written a couple of autobiographical small stories by myself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
someone asked me when I was talking about you, actually, in this book, they're asking me, how can he write that? How can you? I said, this is a question to you. I don't know how it's for you, but for me, this stuff that happens to you never goes away.
No.
Find a spot for it. It's somewhere you find it. So when you do the talks, when you do stuff, you bring it to the forefront, so to speak, to use it for whatever it is. So since all the stuff since I've read the book, all the stuff that's happened to you, when you went to writing it, how was that process? When you said it started getting easier, was just like it was coming up. Everything was just coming up, and that was it.
It was very cathartic and therapeutic. And it was a real healing journey to write this book. And I discovered a lot about myself. I grew as a person and evolved as a person. I was maybe triggered once or twice, but I came out about my story. I first told someone in 2012. And I had then been in therapy, group therapy, rehab, AA, narcotics, Sex Anonymous. So by the time I started writing this book in 2019, 2020, 21, I had already done 7, 8, 9 years of work on myself. It's not like I hadn't done the work, I hadn't done the therapy, I hadn't started the healing process and just started writing, because if I did that, that would have just set me over, over the edge. But because I'd done so much work on myself, and as a result of this, my healing journey, I'd found peace with what happened to me. I understood my relationship with this man, with my family. I kind of started the process of finding forgiveness and all of that stuff. So writing the book was just the next step in my healing journey, and it allowed me to really get more closure, find more understanding, find more peace, and just move forward as a person and evolve and grow and discover who I really am now as a result of my past.
Yes. Also, so folks, you can see I have notes. I was writing this book. I was reading sometimes, and I want to bring up a couple of chapters, the chapters where you're telling your sister, your brother, your parents. It's like coming out.
Yeah.
When I read it, I'm like, oh my God. And I, as a person who knows all about that, coming out, and also when I came out as a victim of rape. So folks at home, some of you guys know this, I've talked about on other shows. I'm a survivor of a violent sexual assault. I was raped at knife point by a friend at my job. But it's not about me, but I want to make sure you guys get a context. I know a little bit about this stuff. To come out to people that happened to me, it was like coming out of the closet. So when I was reading your chapters about that, like telling your sister first how nervous you were, I was like, I know all those emotions. I know I know all those emotions. But you're not out of the closet as a gay man. That's not wasn't it. But I said, but it felt. I read those chapters telling your parents. So it is kind. And then I guess the article, this book, when you go to, does it feel like a process of always kind of coming out?
It is, and it's absolutely, because just like you and as a gay man, it was the biggest secret I'd kept my whole life. And I don't know what your parents' reaction was when you came out and said, I'm gay. But when I came out to my parents and said, I was abused, I was raped as a kid, it's a funny story. I'll tell the story. So we went to dinner, me and my parents. This was about 6 months after my healing journey, after I started therapy. And I knew my parents were coming to New York to visit me. And me and my therapist came up with a bit of a plan to tell them. So we went to dinner, but it was summertime, it was September, so it was a little after summer, but it was still beautiful weather. We sat outside far away from everyone. And, I'm sure most parents will have a little bit of a laugh about this. We sat there and I said, there's something I need to tell you. And the first thing my mum said to me is, you got a girl pregnant. And I'm like, no, you owe someone money. You're in trouble with the police. Someone's asking, all those parent questions.
Yes.
Like, no, please just shut up. I need to tell you.
Yes.
And I said, I was abused as a kid. And mum's like, no, you weren't. We didn't abuse you. And I'm like, no, I was raped at the pool.
Well,
Uh,
stop for a second. Wasn't it, when I read that? Was that funny? They were like they to them like we didn't do anything to you. Like it was like they took it on as themselves at first. Like
was absolutely, absolutely. And then what's very telling is the exact same thing my mum said is what my sister said.
right.
After the who, what, when, where, all those basic questions, the very first or the very next thing she said, exactly the same as my sister, is, wow, that explains everything about you. Now we get you. Now we understand. Because, and a lot of questions I get is, where were your parents in all this? Why didn't your parents see what was going on? How come your parents just didn't see? And I'm like, my parents did see it. I was at home, throughout the years, just depressed, crying for weeks, unable to move, unable to eat, unable to leave my bedroom. I would just sit there and cry and cry and cry. And my parents and my siblings are like, Nathan, what the fuck is going on with you? Tell us, we want to help you. Please let us help, let us help, let us help. And all I would say to him is, don't worry about it. You wouldn't understand. I'll be fine. Leave me alone. It's going to be okay. And they sent me to therapy, and I did therapy for about a month. And I thought, okay, great, I'm all better now, and I'm going to be good. But because I still didn't come out to my therapist about it. I just said I was depressed and I didn't know what it was and how to handle it. Um, but yeah, it was very interesting that the first thing my parents said was, or my mum and my sister was, that explains it. Now we get it. And I'm sure, I don't know what your parents were like when you came out about being gay, or family or whoever. Did they say, yeah, we already knew that, we were waiting for that, then now we understand, or stuff like that? I don't know. Yeah.
I want to give parents, because I'm also a parent myself, so I have both sides of it. I want to give people a chance that you can only do so much as a parent. If your kid is like, leave me alone, I'm fine, blah blah, you can only do so much. You can't force a kid to tell you everything. You can't force a kid to tell you stuff. You don't always pick up on everything. You pick up on stuff as parents, and that's what we're doing the show. So if you're a parent out there, we're just saying keep an eye out, kind of like see what's going on. But I want to give you almost like, especially back then, when I'm talking about different time periods, just like 20, 30 years ago,
Yeah.
a little different also. They may not, they're trying to run the law. They're raising, you have three kids in your family, right? There's three of you in the family. They're trying to raise kids. They're trying to work at the job. There's a lot going on. I want to give parents of the past a little bit of a pass going, we understand. Right. So
Absolutely. And I think the more my parents pushed, and the more my parents, Nathan, tell us, tell us, tell us, tell us, the more I fucking pushed back, and the
yeah,
more I pushed away. So if they were, and I have nothing but love for my parents, I don't hold any ill will toward them. It wasn't their fault. I don't blame them at
yeah,
all.
yeah,
Maybe if they were a little kind of calm about it, nice, and just sat with me and spoke to me as an adult one-on-one,
yeah.
instead of being that helicopter parent over the top. What's going on? Tell us, tell us, tell us. That just pushed me away.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also, we're learning how to be parents as we're being
Oh,
parents.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's just, it's like, that's kind of how that is. And we make little mistakes, but you're right. That's why these shows are important now. We're giving the newer parents to say, okay, maybe try this approach. You may get more out of it. You might. And so just kind of, it may work for you. Every child's different, obviously. Every situation is different, but we give you an idea. So parents who are watching this now, just give you an idea. Maybe try this approach or that approach, and you may get more out of it. But I'm trying to tell you, for those of us who have been abused or hurt, there's shame involved. There's so much shame. You don't want to disappoint your parents. You don't want to disappoint your family. You don't want to disappoint you. You feel disappointed already in yourself because you feel like you let it happen. There's a lot of emotions that we're going through as we're going when it's happening to us. It was happening to you. You
Yeah.
don't have time to worry about what they're thinking. You're busy going through it.
Yeah. And the thing was, the very first time this man, raped me, or the very first words he said to me was that if I tell anyone, he'll kill me and kill my family.
I heard the same thing when I was raised. Same
But
thing.
as an 8-year-old in the 80s, mid 80s, when there was no mobile phone, there was no access to the organizations and the hotlines or any of
Nope.
that stuff.
Nope.
I took that as gospel. I'm like, okay. As soon as that happened, I pushed my family away for their safety and to protect them. And I wanted nothing to do with them. And, my relationship with this man went on for 6 years. And it was very rough and very violent. And he would throw me against the wall. He would choke me out. He would make me pee my pants. He would beat me up. He would rape me very violently. And through his grooming and his manipulation and his lies of this is what you wanted, that I picked him up at the pool, that my parents hate me, that he loves me, that if I tell anyone, no one's going to believe me, that I'll go to jail, all of that stuff. The more he said that, the more I believed it, the more I pushed my family away. And then I fell into a Stockholm syndrome relationship with this man where I felt love for him and I wanted to be with him. And I would ride my bike to his house and wait for him, knowing all too well what was going to fucking happen to me. But that was all I knew. And that's what I wanted. And I pushed everyone else in the world away, that he was the only one giving me love and giving me affection. As fucked up as that sounds, he was the only one doing it, and I needed it. That was my heroin. That was my addiction. Was that needing that, wanting that, knowing the pain, knowing the hurt, knowing the distress and the shame and everything it was putting on me. I still needed it.
Tell people how old you were when it first happened.
I was 8 years old.
And so I can't even imagine as an 8-year-old or any eight. I look at all these 8-year-olds. I have nieces and nephews are 8-year-olds, and that this is going on. This happens to many 8-year-olds and out there. This happens where you don't have a fully developed brain. You don't have fully developed. You don't have experience. So all the stuff you're saying may sound far fetched, but folks, remember he was 8 years old when it first happened. 8. Like, let that sit in. Let that sink for a minute. A little helpless 8-year-old goes to the bathroom at a pool, and in the book he talks all about. Trust me, he tells you all. you gotta see all of it. He tells you step by step what happens, which I think is important. It's not just salacious, folks. As I'm saying, it's important to hear because it is fucked up. It's not good. It's not. It's like this is you gonna feel when you read the book. It's wrong. Like, you gonna feel it's wrong as you're reading it, and I think good for you for surviving that. Some folks can't survive that, and that's what we're trying to stop. We're trying people to get help. But you're 8 years old, so your childhood was taken away.
Exactly. I didn't have a childhood. I had to grow up and learn how to survive at 8 years old on my own, even though I had my parents there and I had the comfort of the house, and that was all. It was always there. But in my own idea, my own head, I had to do it alone. I had to grow up. I had to survive. And I had to do it alone, away from my family, so that I could protect them and keep them safe. And that's kind of how it was. And just on one of the deals with my publisher, when she asked me, I said, I'm going to write this book, but if I do it, I'm including all the details. I'm not just going to say I was raped at 8 years old and here I am today, and today I'm fabulous and I'm acting and I'm in New York and I'm living this amazing life. No, because in order for the public and the readers to learn, to educate themselves, to grow, to understand what one goes through, the consequences, you need to talk about the shit in the middle. And no one talks about the shit in the middle. Like I said, people will come out and say I was abused, but here I am today, and today I'm amazing. They don't want to talk about the messy parts. And it's the messy parts that are most important, because it's the messy parts where we learn, where we grow, where we understand.
We're going to go into some of the messy parts in a second, but I'm going to take a little breather. We're going to jump around, because there was a positive force in your life at one point. You weren't ready for him. Mike. He was trying. He recognized you're a good-looking young dude, and then you got all that stuff. But he was like, I don't care. You said in the book, that's like your muscles not going to do anything here. He was trying. He was into Eastern, ways, and you could tell you tell how you really weren't ready for him. It seems like when I was reading that story about I'm like, here's a positive. I didn't expect him to come along. I was like, oh, there's a positive force kind of happening in his life. He was older. He was married. And apparently he talked to you, but like you weren't ready. I guess it seems like.
Yeah, no, there were a few positive people in my life who came into my life at certain stages, certain parts, to put me back on the straight and narrow and to let me know that I'm going to be okay. And just to say, listen, what you're going through and the life you're living, it's not real. It's an illusion. It's not who you really are. And kind of put me on the track to healing and to me understanding who I really am and who I really want to be in life. So yeah, I did have a lot of positive influence. There was a lot of negative influence, but there was a lot of, or there was a bit of positive influence that really helped me kind of stay alive, if I can be
I
honest
was
with
going to
you.
say why I bring him up and why it's like it's important for people to know that in the book there are some glimmers of stuff in here, of hope in here, but you'll see he's in the middle of his stuff. He's still and he Nathan like
Yeah,
the character
yeah,
character in your book. No, Nathan is going through his stuff still, but we have people that come into our lives sometimes while we're going through it. That's why I said it. You weren't ready for him yet, but he did help you along. So at some level, it did keep you, like alive. I guess basically alive on some level.
yeah, absolutely. He did keep me alive, and he'd been through a lot in life.
Right.
Um, I won't go into his story, but it's not abuse or anything. But he'd be through a lot, and he just taught me about his mistakes and what he went through and how he got through it.
Yeah.
And he kind of just guided me in the most subtle of ways. He wasn't up my ass about it. He wasn't on top of me about it. He would just say gentle, easy, small little things. And it just kind of, I resonated with it and I got it and I was able to do it. But then I would always fall back into my old ways. But then I could always kind of get out of that and then kind of come back to that.
Okay. Another part of the book. Okay. Another part of the book that I can relate to. I had a little chuckle because it's because hey folks, when you're young, I always make jokes that a stiff wind I was hard. Like how there's jokes like that. When you're young, it's like it's just whatever. And I think a friend of mine and I were talking about our first times. Because I have two first times, just that's how it works out. But my first time with a woman, well, a girl. I guess it's a woman, whatever. We were young. I'm old now. I'm like, we're young, we're kids. Your first time was similar to mine, and I love how you talk about the whole first time, and
And I embarrass myself. I know. I just say it how it was.
I did chuckle big. I was like, oh my god, that was me too. I'm sure many guys too, like. And we were like, it's over in minutes, we're done. And you were embarrassed. And I'm like, we've all been like, oh my God, we're there. I'm like, but I was telling you because I know I'm glad you add that in the book because you also talked about how there were things that she wanted. Same with my girl. There were things that she wanted that were natural stuff that if you weren't fucked up, you would probably go to. She wanted a family and like a relationship. And you were not there for that. You were just not ready for that. And I wasn't either.
Yeah.
I said, but I'm glad you add that part to the book. I mean, I said we're joking and chuckling a little bit because you'll see yourself in there, people, if you've had a first time and you're young. But I'm glad you add because when I was reading the first part of the book, it's all about this dude and what he did to you. Like, well, yeah, well, if Nathan is still trying to figure out who he is, a girl has to come in there somewhere, and she does. Talk about that a little bit.
That was fun. It was just
I chuckled. I was like, okay, I don't know.
I
You're in
had
high
this,
school.
exactly. I had this girl coming over. I'd never been with a girl before, and all of my friends were. It was interesting because I rarely went to school discos and socials or any of that stuff because my friends would tell me how cool it was, and they were hooking up with girls and doing what they were doing with these girls and making out and whatever. But I was having sex with men and I was, doing all this stuff with men and being beaten up and beating them up and, sex and whatnot. So I'm like, yeah, that's just boring and I don't care for that. And I don't want to be with a girl and I don't know how to be with a girl. And then I always had love for women. The sex I was having with men, there was never any intimacy. It was just the act because that's all I knew. But with women, I'm like, oh, wow, she's beautiful and I love her and I want to be with her and I want to explore that. But I'd never just didn't think I could. So I met this girl and we were out and I invited her back to my house and mum and dad were away. And instead of doing it in my room, because I just had a shitty little single bed, I take him to my parents' room and, the big double bed and all that stuff. And we get naked and we
I
do
totally flinched when I read that part. I'm like, your parents' bed.
and we get
Uh,
naked. Yeah, well, I wanted to
I
impress
would
him.
have never. I was scared. I mean, my parents. Oh, my parents. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
And we get naked and she's doing things to me and I'm doing things to her and I was into it and I loved it. And then, she goes, all right, she knew I didn't have sex. So she kind of worked out that I'd never had sex before with a woman. Or she didn't even know I was having sex with men or anything like that. But put on a condom. This is a terrible thing. I stick it in her.
Yeah,
penetrate her, however you want to say it.
I know. So,
I do it. I twice, 3 times, and it was done. I was done.
I understand. That was me. I understand.
And I just was so embarrassed. And, it
Yes.
was literally done in 10, 15 seconds.
Hello. Yeah.
But what was interesting with that, and I talk about it straight after it, I should have been really fucking happy and I should have been calling my friends and I just had sex with a woman and it's amazing and I'm no longer a virgin and blah, blah, blah. I felt so much shame and anger and hatred toward myself and guilt and I shouldn't be enjoying this and I shouldn't like this because this man said I'm a failure and I'm an idiot and I'm a loser and I don't deserve love and I don't deserve anything. And I had all of that come back and just hit me. I was triggered massively by that as soon as it happened, I stole all my dad's liquor and I just got drunk. I got really fucking drunk. I rode my bike the next suburb over from my house. And how old was I? 15, 16, 17? I can't even remember. I rode my bike to an industrial estate. I went into a sex club and I let a man rape me and abuse me because that's what I deserved. I didn't deserve the love and the happiness and oh my God, I just had sex with a woman and this is amazing. I need to call everyone. I didn't tell a soul. I got drunk. I hated myself. I don't deserve this. And I went and let a man rape me and abuse me. And that's what I deserved.
Yeah. Well, we don't. Again, our brains aren't fully formed. We're forming our brains with this disease.
Yeah.
Abuse, the cycle is happening. It's what you know,
Yeah.
right? It's better than what
Exactly.
you know. I think we're all sitting here now with our brains thinking, like, that's crazy. Oh my God. Like, but that's normal. That's your normal when you grew up that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I know that my abuse was my identity.
Absolutely.
Completely.
It's
I mean,
spot on.
if I met anybody, I was going to tell you I was raped. I just want to know if you wanted chicken. No, I was raped. I mean, we were going to the car wash. But no, I was raped. Like, do you understand? I was to anybody who would listen almost in a romantic situation or anything, I would kill the mood.
How old were you?
I was 17.
Yeah. See, I didn't tell a soul for 25 years. I didn't tell a soul until I was 32.
Right.
And that's what fucked me up. That's what led me down that road of the drugs and the violence and the sex and the addictions and trying to kill myself was the fact that I didn't tell anyone.
And see, I told everybody would listen, but I still was destructive because it was my identity. It was like, well, it's because I was raped. I got to put you through 10 hoops just to get to know me.
Yep.
So in both paths, you and I going, not good. I had to get therapy too. I had to get therapy also. I had a great therapist, Sherry Coddington. I love you, Sherry. She was great for years. But I'm saying we both were. I'm saying he and I are two examples. So I had emotional and physical abuse from my father before that, all the way growing up. So I had a parent who abused me, but not sexually. And then I had this happen to me, and then I was trying to discover who I was at the same time, and that got mixed in. So I want to talk about that for a second because there's that whole thing of, well, it must make you gay, and it must make you gay, and you're risk sex with men. And I could try to tell people, and please reiterate to people out there, this isn't sex, it's violence, it's power, it's energy. It's not lovingly sexual.
No, exactly.
And so please tell people that's
You just hit it on the head. It's power. That's what it's all about. So yes, this man disappeared. He kind of abandoned. And I say he abandoned me because I was in love with him. I wanted to be with him. Then all of a sudden, he just disappeared out of my life. He was gone. I had no
Crazy.
idea
It's crazy.
whether he got in trouble from, abusing other kids, or he was about to be found out or something. So he just disappeared, or he got caught and was put away. I don't know that, but that was 13. I was 13 years old. So for about 2 years, I just questioned who I was. Am I gay? Am I straight? He told me how special I was. Was I really special? That this only happens to special boys. But when he abandoned me as well, that was when the depression kicked in. That was when the shame kicked in. That was when the anger and the hatred for myself and for the world kicked in, because I thought I was going to be with him forever and we're going to live happily ever after, so to speak. Then he was gone and I had no one because I pushed my family away, and I continued to push them away in protection for them, but in protection for myself as well. And I lived in a small town in Australia, called Queanbeyan, just outside of Canberra. Canberra's the capital city. I lived just outside of it. And the next suburb over from mine was an industrial estate. So after questioning who I was for a year or two and what am I, all of that stuff, I always knew, and everyone knows growing up there, that there's sex clubs and gay clubs and cruise lounges in this industrial estate, brothels and all that. So as a 15-year-old boy, I would ride my bike there, and I would sneak into these sex clubs, gay clubs, and I wasn't a big boy. I was a young 15-year-old boy, skinny, small. I would walk in there, and these men would then just turn around and abuse me and rape me again. And I wanted it, and I would try and pick them up and was asking for it, knowing again what was going to happen. Um, I knew it was wrong. I knew I didn't like it. I hated it. It was disgusting, but I still got hard. I still got off. I still came. It was still exciting. I still craved it. It was my addiction. It was my fucking heroin. And then, after they would rape me, and I would then turn around and hit them and beat them up and bash them and rob them. And that was, like you said, that was my power. That was my fuck you to the world. That was my way of getting my power back. That was my way of feeling alive, of just feeling something, because I was dead inside. I was dead on the outside, but I was dead inside. There was nothing left. And the only thing that gave me life was sex with men, and then violence. And then it was drugs and other things that came after that. But at that time, it was that. And like I said, I always was attracted to women. I was always, oh, wow, she's beautiful. And, all of that stuff. But I needed men. I didn't want to explore that with women. I just needed men to do this. And like, as I mentioned earlier, there was never any intimacy. I wouldn't touch you, hold you, kiss you, caress you, hold your hand. We wouldn't cuddle after sex. It was just the act. And then I would turn around, beat you up, run out of there, and just get the fuck out. And that was my life until I told someone, until 32. So for 20 odd 25 years, that was what I was doing. Having relationships with women, as I was older, trying to be in relationships with women, trying to love these girls and trying to, do this as a normal person, but then turn around and go and do this stuff with men, because that was all I knew and that was all I needed.
Right. Oh, I get it. I totally get it. And you do it. You're doing it, and you don't want to do it, but you said you can't stop. You can't stop. And it's weird. You said, the thing that was very poignant for me is when you said he abandoned you, and I thought, I get what he's saying. I tell you, because even when I was beat up, punched in the face, raped, laying there, and I was thinking, but our friendship's over now, I guess, because he was my friend. He grew me for a year. He was my friend.
Yeah.
And I did this to me, and now it's like, I'm like, I should be thinking I want to kill him, but I'm thinking our friendship. So I really enjoyed our friendship. Isn't that crazy, right? It's like you're like, but you're beat up and if you have to go to the hospital and all this stuff. But I'm like, our friendship, and I really was, and that was one of the things that confused me in therapy. That and my girl's like, but he was your friend.
Your friend, yeah.
For you, this man was in your life. in your life all those years to have that. It doesn't matter what it is. Our minds become twisted on some level.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, he was my everything.
Right?
If
I
I
get
can
it.
say
I
that.
totally get it.
And I pushed everyone away. He was the one, again, just through his lies. And it was all about his lies and his grooming, his manipulation, telling me that my parents hate me, telling me that my siblings hate me, telling me that if I tell them, they're not going to believe me, that I loved him and that he loved me. And, you know, he gave me one gift and it was a toy car. And that's why the book's called Toy Cars. He gave me one gift because I loved playing with cars as a young boy, as most boys do. And he gave me this one little, you know, toy car and a matchbox car, and I would just drive it with my other cars, and I would play situations where the car he gave me was him. And I remember there was this car that my dad gave me. It's a little gray matchbox, and the wheels were broken on it. It was just a beat up piece of shit. And that was me. And he would always come and rescue me and take me away from the other cars and play with me, just me and him. And so I put my real life situation into these toy cars, and that's how I kind of fantasized it and wanted it more and lived it and needed it, were just through these playing of these toy cars.
I don't think I've ever asked you this question. It just came to me now.
Yeah.
Um, I know for me, once I had therapy and then done speaking engagements, and I've gotten, got schooling and, learned psychology and stuff. Have you ever thought about, as you've gotten older and as you're living your life like what now, have you ever tried to think about what his life was like, the first guy?
Always, always, always. And he's dead now, but I've
Like
always,
mine is too. He's dead now
yeah,
too.
yeah, I've always said I would love to sit with him and just speak to him,
Right. Like what's
ask him questions. Um, I know, or I was told that later on, after he died, after I found out that it happened to him, or he said it happened to him, and it happened to me in the 80s. Probably happened to him in the 50s or the 60s.
yeah.
It was almost not accepted, but it was almost, yeah, that shit happens and we just don't talk about it.
Oh,
You know,
right.
I remember, back in the day when your parents would say, oh, just watch out for that guy who lives in that house. He's
Yes.
a bit
Yes.
crazy. He's a bit weird.
Yes.
It's not that guy's a pedophile. Stay away from him. He's fucked up. It was that guy's just a bit weird. So just be careful of him.
Uncle Willie's a little handsy.
Yes. Yes.
But your daughters are like 5 and 6. You should be handsy with your 5. But yeah, just don't go over by him when he starts drinking or whatever.
Exactly. And mine wasn't a my guy wasn't a family member.
Right.
Yes.
That
Yes, like that. He's a bit handsy, he's a bit weird, or he's a bit strange.
Yeah.
That's what the dialogue was. That was the verbiage back then.
Yep.
Whereas today it's he's a fucking pedophile, blah blah blah. It's completely different. But back then it was almost accepted that he was just he loved kids or he was a fucking whatever he was, or so it was a completely different time and yeah, so I would have loved to have sat there and spoken to him and why me?
Yeah, same here. I'm the same way. Why me? I'm like what was it about? What is it? Was I not that special, or was I that special? Like one of the two.
Yeah.
Like, what was it that triggered you to focus on me?
Yeah, and I always say, and I've said this for a long time, and I don't know if I don't know if how I feel right now or today, but I said I would speak to him, and then I'd take a baseball bat and I'd kill him.
I can understand that. Yes.
Not because of what he's done to me, just so he can't do it to someone else. I'm at peace with what's happened to me. I've found forgiveness for myself, not for this man, but I've forgiven myself for the hurt that was put onto me and the hurt I've put onto others. But we're human beings. We're never going to forget. We're never going, you can go to forgive, and I do partly forgive him, but it's always there, and I'm never going to forgive him. And I'm allowed to not forgive him. That's okay. And I always say I would take a baseball bat and I'd kill him. I don't know if I'd do that today, but I want to sit with him and speak to him and get that closure for myself.
I would love to talk to my guy too, and just like what happened. I know from my father, he's had some stuff happen. Obviously, in his bad. I found out years later. Hurt people, right? That's what happens.
Absolutely,
They do, but it's really interesting because we're men. And another question I want to talk to, kind of talk about as we kind of wrap this up, because we talk for you like to talk forever. We know how we do.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and this could be maybe we'll have another conversation. We're talking, folks. Actually, you and I talking about some stuff
Yeah.
possibly in the future. So, but this is a good intro conversation about this. Um, I know for me, having to make amends to people, I know I've done because of what was happened to me. You talk about this in the book too. This is a good way to kind of close this off a little bit. Um, how are you finding ways to live with yourself?
All right. So the three biggest things I learned in therapy is has really helped me find peace. And the first one, and bless my therapist, she passed away. She died.
Oh,
She was an older woman, but she was a bulldog. She was 5 foot nothing, but she was just a tough woman. And she would put me in a fight and then stay in the fight with me. She wouldn't let me out. And she would say, Nathan, if you could go back today and speak to your 8-year-old self, what would you tell him? And I would and ah about it. I'm like, I don't fucking know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But she would not let me get out of it. She would not let me run away from that. And then it finally hit me. It finally came to me that it wasn't my fault. I would tell my 8-year-old self that it wasn't my fault. And that was the first big revelation, so to speak. A huge weight was lifted off my shoulders when I discovered that. It was like peeling back a layer of onions, the onion thing. Because I discovered my relationship with this man. I understood it. I understood my relationship with my parents, with men, with women, with lovers, with whatever the situation was. So that was the first thing that really helped me kind of move forward. The second thing was one we just touched on was forgiveness. Finding forgiveness for myself, not for this man, for the anger and the hatred that I'd put onto myself and onto others. And once I found forgiveness, the anger and the hatred started to dissolve. It started to go away. And I was able to sit in it, to sit in the heavy parts when I was triggered, when I was going through shit. Instead of throwing it away, pretending it doesn't exist and it's not there, I would sit in it. I would breathe. And breathing is so important. When you get triggered, when you're anxiety attack, when you're depressed, if you breathe, you're able to come back to yourself and being yourself. So I would just sit there, breathe through this situation, see where this shit hit me on my body, see what it did to me, how it made me feel mentally, emotionally, physically. And then again, I still wouldn't throw it away. I would move forward with it. I would understand it. I would educate myself on it. I would grow as a result of it. I would evolve. And so that when I was triggered again, when this shit hit me and came onto me again, it was there. I knew it. I knew how to handle it. Instead of pushing it away and then having it come and hit me, and then it builds and builds and builds and builds until I explode and I lose my shit and I hurt myself and hurt someone else. And then I think the most important thing, the third thing, which has really allowed me to find some peace and live with myself, as you said, was own my shit. I own who I am, the good, the bad, the ugly. I did a lot of bad. I did a lot of ugly. I hurt a lot of people. I put my hand up and say, yes, I did it. And I am sorry. But it's who I was and it was what I was going through. And I didn't know any different. I wouldn't change a thing because it's brought me to where I am today. But in owning my shit, I've got my power back. I've got my freedom back. I'm able to live with myself and say, you know what? Yeah, this is who I am. Take it or leave it. I've been through a lot in my life. I'm a cat. I've lived 9 lives. I've tried killing myself, shooting heroin, smoking crack, selling my body for sex. I've done it. I've done it all. And it's brought me to where I am today. And today I know who I am as a person. And not many people can say that. On my talks, I talk a lot about we need to redefine masculinity. And as a male, I think the most important thing is vulnerability, is communication, is being able to say you're not okay, is being able to cry, is being able to just express how you feel. So I've learned all that stuff on my journey of healing and growth and yeah, it wasn't my fault. Finding forgiveness and just owning my shit are the 3 things, the 3 major pillars that have allowed me to live with myself and move forward and understand who I am mentally, emotionally, sexually, physically, all of it, my whole being. And like I said, I've done a lot of bad things and I've hurt a lot of people and I regret a lot of things, but I wouldn't change it because it's brought me to where I am today as a person, mentally, emotionally, and I'm doing okay.
Yeah, folks, I can attest he is amazing. I think you do.
And and I have to say though, it's not a quick fix. It's not like, I was in therapy for a bit and, I'm still in it. I'm still in the fight. It's 12 years later and I'm still
Me too. So,
learning and discovering. And it's an everyday thing. And I'm going to do it for the rest of my life. And I think the most important thing is one thing that I really learned is I thought I hit my rock bottom before I even came out about this story. My rock bottom happened in therapy. So I was in therapy, I went down, and then I came back up. So therapy is tough. It's a fight. It's a struggle. You're going to want to jump out or whatever healing process you're doing. Maybe not, may not be therapy. It's going to get harder before it gets easier. And you need to stick with it and find the people who are going to believe you. Find that community who are going to trust you, who are going to love you, who are going to believe you, who are going to, most important, we just want someone who's going to sit with us and listen to us and just sit in silence. Find those people because they're the people who are going to move you forward and save your life and protect you and help you and love you.
have to walk through it, folks.
Yeah, you do.
You get to the door, you got to walk across the room. And that's literally what I was told. It's like you can't get from one side of the room to the other without walking across it.
Absolutely.
You do. And so the stuff will be being thrown at you or stepping over stuff, whatever, it's all part of it. But you'll get to that door. You'll get there. Just keep going.
Yeah.
And that's good advice for anything in life. But I think for this kind of stuff, there is no quick fix. You're right. And you have to kind of just go through it. And you have little epiphanies along the way. It's wonderful when little things happen. It's great.
Yeah.
And you're right. You can't take one thing out because it make everything fall apart. It's one of those things like it all had to happen. It all
and you'll take even me now, I still take 2 steps forward, 3 steps back sometimes. Yeah. It's still hard sometimes. I still struggle or I still fuck up or I still whatever I do. But it's all part of the learning journey. It's just all part of the journey.
And if we say it out loud, folks, that's something that me and Nathan have in common. We're about saying things out loud that are hard to say because there's no shame anymore. Sorry, that's gone. No shame anymore. And it happens to boys.
It does happen.
It happens to men.
Yeah.
It happens to boys. It happens to men. If you don't hear anything else we said today, it happens to boys. It happens to men. And if any of you men are watching, it happened to you and it's okay. And you can work through it. And if you're any boys have you watched this, and it has happened to you, it happens to boys. Let's get that out the way. It's not just girls and women, it happens to boys also.
And it happens a lot more often than what we think.
Oh, of course. But I just want to make sure that we say that. That's one thing you and I like how we want to get everybody know it happens. It happens. So when they tell you it doesn't happen, no, it happens.
Yeah, it does.
And it does not make you any less of a boy or a man.
No.
Which I say that also because I am very rooted in my manness. I like being a man, and I do. I'm in it. So I'm like, but I had nothing to do with that. It didn't. It just again, it was power and confusion and all these things that went with that. That you can learn to shed away, and that's why we're doing these talks. We'll probably have more. Like I said, we're working on some stuff. We want to encourage people to talk more. So if you've gone through this yourself, you want to call my show, you're welcome to my show. You're safe, secure. We can talk first before we do this. But anybody wants to speak out on their story that's similar to ours, please. If you want to reach out to him, I'll get you in contact with him. Safely. But if you want to talk to him about this stuff, and I mean seriously, his book Toy Cards is out there, Amazon for sure. Go ahead and run out and get a copy. Seriously, it's a very good read. It's a brave story he's telling. It's a good read.
Thank you. Yeah. And I've put in the hard work, and I've done the healing, and I've been on the journey, and the book is now being turned into a movie. So it's exciting times ahead, and I'm a global speaker. I speak all over the world on this. I was just invited to India, so it's come full circle, so to speak. So, you know, if any,
They'll tell people where they can find you. So they want
yes.
to hire you. So that's what
I guess more so, I'm on Instagram is my number one thing. So come on Instagram. It's just Nathan Spiteri. And I have a love-hate.
it's inside joke between me, him, and I. So I'm just like,
Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with it, but it's Nathan Spiteri, and I'll definitely get back to you. So follow me on there, and I'll reach out if you guys get in contact. I also have a website, just www.nathanspiteri.com. So, you know, if you have a speaking gig for me, or if you want me to speak at your organization or anything, just send me an email on that, or reach out to me on Instagram, and I'll get back to you. And yeah, I'm a friendly guy. I'll be
he
nice.
is, folks, and he's good. Hi, bring him on anywhere. Nathan, you know I love you, so you know that already.
Absolutely, you too.
So, folks, I'm James Lott Jr. I'm for hire too, of course. But we're promoting Nathan right now. But I'm at lottahelp.com, a lot of help on Facebook. James Lott Jr., wherever all James Lott Jr.'s are, I'm there, literally. But yes, again, we want to thank you for listening or watching this and sticking through it with us. And again, if it's happened to you, we are on your side. We believe you. We are on your side. And again, it does happen to boys, and it does happen to men. And we'll talk to you next time.